Welcome everyone to part one of our grant writing session from cradle to completion. We're excited to have our guest speakers for this week, and which also the topic will carry into next week because it's such an in-depth and involved and important topic to graduate students and postdocs. So we have with us our representatives from REDKey, which is the Office of Research, Economic Development, and Knowledge Enterprise. And with us are Carlos Aguirre, Jesse Hernandez, and Liana Ryan. So I am going to turn it over to them, and thank you, all three of you, for being with us today.
Oh, your mute's on.
I know. I was trying to
Okay.
figure out. I started sharing and then needed to figure out how to unmute myself. All right. Are you all able to see the PowerPoint that I just brought up?
Yes.
Yes. Do you mind if I leave it in this format versus the presentation format? Is it clear enough this way?
Oh yeah, that's fine.
Yes. All right. All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Liana Ryan, and I'm the director for the Research Service Center that works primarily with our colleges of sciences and engineering and integrated design. So we may have already worked with some of you in the past, but it's nice to have all of you here. Here today with me presenting about what we do is Jesse Hernandez. So I'll let Jesse introduce himself and then we'll get started.
You're on mute, Jesse.
How's that? All right.
Sorry, I caught him off guard.
My name is Jesse Hernandez. I work in the RSC for HEBA. So my group, I essentially, we work with all the other colleges that are not sciences, engineering, or integrated design. So that means College of Business, College of Ed, COFA, HCAP, and then I serve all the VP offices, whether they'd be academic affairs or honors college. I work with the police department. I work with the library, all the other items on there. It's good to see you all today.
Sorry. So today, just to quickly preface this for those of you that haven't worked with us or aren't familiar with grant processes, there's kind of two major buckets for what REDKey does when it comes to submitting grant applications, receiving them, and administering them. And we separate it into this kind of pre-award bucket and this post-award bucket. So what Jesse and I work with primarily is pre-award processes, meaning those things that take place before an actual, really before funding has hit books at UTSA, before there's an account that's set up and being monitored and that sort of thing. And Carlos does as well. So what you're hearing about today is more of this pre-award process. So pre-award processes at UTSA, the logistical piece, the piece that is for compliance and for, I call it, I refer to it as that you kind of have your compliance side and your qualitative side of the process. So Jesse and I are on what I'd call the compliance side of the process. And then Carlos is on more of the quality, improving how you write and, you know, what sponsors you go after and things like that. So just to put it in perspective, you kind of, it's pre-post, and then within pre, we kind of have what you have to do, although we're not here to police you, but you know, what you have to do. And then what you should do to make your application better, more fundable, etc. So our unit that Jesse and I work under is the Office of Sponsor Project Administration. This is one of the units within the REDKey division. We're led by Dr. Sandra Garcia. I believe she's actually on the call. And she's our Assistant Vice President for Sponsor Project Administration. And at UTSA, Sponsor Project Administration is made up of really these two components. Again, we're dividing into, we have our research service centers, which are your front line for submitting grant applications and reviewing them and all of that sort of thing. and then our contract team. So we have a contract team dedicated to research and sponsored projects. There's also a UTSA legal business unit. The two interface regularly. But if you're ever working on a research project that involves any sort of legal or contract negotiation, we have our own unit. So Dr. Garcia oversees these two major areas. And our goal is to help faculty advance their research, obviously, and we're here to really try to streamline that pre-award aspect of what they're doing and make sure they're doing it with legal protections that they need and things, or that you need and things like that. Just to give you some perspective, and I hope you all can still see the screen, but this is a snapshot of the last 3 years of funding requested at UTSA. So this isn't the number of applications we've submitted, but this is the dollars. And that peak in FY21 that you see is really from CARES and special opportunities that were given by the federal government and others for COVID primarily, the COVID shutdown, actually doing research on COVID, supporting the campus during that period. And a lot of that money flowed through our division, even though a lot of it was more institutional support or academic support, not just purely research support. So that column is an outlier, and that's why in this and in the next slide. But you'll see that in FY20, so a couple of years ago, we submitted proposals for around $466 million. Last full fiscal year was FY22, and we were around 513 million. So we have grown quite a bit in how much we're requesting. As far as money received, this is a snapshot of the last 3 years. So again, you have FY20 around 100 million. FY21 is that outlier for COVID CARES support, not institutional support. And then 110 million. So last year we achieved about a $10 million increase in the awards that we received through UTSA. And this is all what we call sponsored project funding. So what is a sponsored project? A sponsored project is any sort of typically external funding that's going to be coming into the campus to conduct an activity. And that activity could be a research activity, it could be training, it could be education, it could be for building a new building, but that's specifically, given in the form of a grant or something. It could be for purchasing equipment, things like that. But typically there's some kind of application process that you go through. It's competitive typically. And then you would receive the funding and be held accountable for it. So typically you'll receive that funding in the form of what we call a grant, a contract, or some other kind of agreement. And anytime you're receiving funding through the university, either you as students or your mentors, that comes in this way, that's externally funded to perform a particular activity and comes in the form of a formal, grant contract agreement, it'll be processed and through us, and you'll work with us on it. I'm sorry, I got a call there. Typically, you're bound to a line of certain activity, and if it's research, scholarly, or scientific inquiry, so you submitted an application, you need to follow what you submitted, and they expect you to then perform on what you said you would. It might require reporting. That's very common of a sponsored project. So some kind of technical reporting, financial reporting, etc. It'll often require some kind of budget. So you can't just leave an open dollar value, but they would typically tell you, oh, we're funding X amount of dollars. How are you going to use that money? And you have to provide documentation to let the sponsor know how you're going to use the funding through a line item budget or other kind of summary of your projected expenditure or what you think you'd spend money on. Once you're funded, there are financial and, like I said, technical reports that typically have to be submitted. Most sponsored projects would be subject to audit, especially federal projects. So it's not atypical for them to come in and audit how we're spending our funds. Are we spending them how we said we would, etc. And then if the award might have some sort of mention of how materials or equipment purchased through that award should be handled once it's over. So will they let you keep the things you've purchased? Do you have to return the things that you've purchased? Things like that. So those are some typical qualities of a sponsored project. They're all a little unique, but those are the major ones. So when should you contact your RSC? Really, you should contact the RSC anytime that you're looking to apply for something that is externally funded, that would pass through UTSA, or if you're unsure, you can still contact us. But typically we're looking for things that would be funded through UTSA or have to be applied to through UTSA that are externally sponsored projects. And, you know, we're here to answer questions. So if you ever are looking at an opportunity, but you're not sure if it's a sponsored project or how it would get funded to you, you can always contact us, our teams, and let us know, hey, I'm looking at this thing, you know, which unit should work on this? Or do you even need to see this? Can you help me? That sort of thing. We'd rather have you come to us early with that sort of question about making sure where it should go and all of that, how it should flow, then wait and assume it's something else and you can't submit, or maybe you're at the deadline day and suddenly we have to try to find a way to get it out, right? So the earlier you come to us, the better. But typically you would come to us when you see things like that it's a grant, that it's being funded through UTSA, that it has a budget, that sort of thing. So proposals for grants, proposals for some kind of contract, any new money that would be coming to UTSA from outside. And what we do is we have these research service centers, we call them, that assist with pre-award processing. So that means we do packaging and submission of proposals. We assist you with forms, we assist you with budgets, we assist you with getting internal approvals for things, signatures, things like that that may be needed. We do compliance review, so we make sure that what you've prepared will actually get to review. You'd be surprised how many applications get turned away from review simply because people didn't follow the instructions, because they were in a hurry or whatever else. So that's really what we're here to do, is to help make sure you have the internal approvals and things that you need, but also help you to ensure that that application will make it into review. And then Carlos takes over after that and makes sure it reviews well. He'll help you with writing tips to make sure it reviews well. But that's us in a nutshell. And Jesse's going to give you more information then about the actual process.
Right. So the actual process, thanks, Liana. The actual process, what we ask for is for whether it's faculty, staff, or grad students that are working with us, to submit us a notice of intent. We have an email box, essentially, where we receive notice of intents, and this is key to getting our pre-award activity started. Once we receive those notices, we allocate and distribute the projects to our staff who are going to be working directly with you. So let's say they receive it. The first thing that they're going to do is work with you to make sure that they will comply with the program guidelines, right? We're going to review it, make sure that you're eligible to submit it, that the university is eligible to submit it. Once we get that finalized, we'll create a checklist for you. This checklist will create a timeline and a listing of the documents that are required for submission. We'll break those out and we'll say, these are the ones you'll be responsible for, and then those that we are responsible for. Generally, what we try to do is we try to take over the administrative side of the project, and there's a lot of standard forms in there that we'll assist you with to complete them. That way you can focus on the writing that's involved in it. As Liana was talking about, we have a 15-5 2-day policy. So currently we ask that we get notified that your NOI is submitted at least 15 business days before your project is due, before the deadline. If you want to do it earlier, we love it. That's great. That helps us out and we can help you more. Then that's 15 days. 5 days before the deadline, we ask for good documents, good copies of all your non-technical stuff. That way we can review them and provide feedback for you on those items. Finally, 2 days before the deadline is when we ask for all your documents finalized. This allows us to review them, to begin uploading and processing, and to get our online approval process. What that means is routing and approval. So we'll have you complete an online routing form. It's called electronic routing form. And there's a lot of disclosures and conflict of interest, compliance questions on there that you'll answer to help us make sure we have all the documents required, and that there are, if there's any issues, we can get those handled before the package is submitted. Once that is completed, we upload it with all your final documents to the application. For instance, if we're submitting a federal application, we'll do it in our own internal system-to-system connection that we have, we call Cayuse, and we'll upload your documents there. We create a routing chain. This routing chain is appropriate because it requires the PI, you being the PI, and then we go through your department chair, the college ADR, and any other co-PIs that might be involved in it, get their review and approval. And then it finally comes back to our unit for final review and submission. This is important that we meet that 2-day notice. That way we can make sure we get everything out and processed in time. Especially with federal grants, most federal grants are due by 5 p.m. that deadline day, if not sooner. There's some that are due by noon, some that are due by 3, but the majority are due by 5 p.m. If we start that routing chain late in the afternoon, I'm pretty confident we're not going to make the submission in time. So that's why we need to get everything completed, authorized, so we can get it submitted out for you. When we actually get the final approval for you and everything's ready to go, our office will contact you as the lead one more time to make sure you're ready to submit. And then we'll provide that notice to our authorized official representatives, Liana's being one of them, Dr. Garcia being the other that's involved in our group. And they are the ones that will actually submit the project for you. Whether it goes to grants.gov or if it's submitted through another website, we'll follow up with you with emails to tell you when it has been submitted. We'll go back and update the routing form that you created to show that it was submitted. And then we will actually follow up and provide you with notification of it being submitted and with that documentation showing it was submitted. Once we get, so that was submitted, 3, 6, 9 months later, you get a notice that it's funded. We'll work with you again to review the documentation and make sure everything's good, what you submitted, what they're funding is correct. If there's changes in the budget, changes in the language, we can work with you and actually get you linked up with our other group under OSPA, our CIA, Office of Contracts, Industrial Agreements. That group will review the terms and conditions that are on the contract to make sure they meet your review and make sure they meet state and university guidelines that we have for it. All of that, they will act as the intermediary and negotiate with the sponsor on the university and yours behalf to get it done. Once it's fully executed, it'll come back to our group and we will link you up with our post-award group. The post-award group is the group that will actually work through the project and set up an account so you can begin spending with it. They will review all the documentation and they'll actually have an initial meeting with you. That way you can make sure everybody understands their positions and the work they're doing. They'll follow up during the project to make sure, send you notices, hey, you have a proposal progress report due in 6 months, you have due in 90 days, it's due in 30 days, etc. They'll follow up with you to get all that's done. They'll help you do all of the updated information and get that done. If you can go to the next slide, please. So this is a quick chart of what I just described to you, and in 8 steps, how to get the proposal submission process started. The first one being identifying the funding opportunity you're submitting to. That's step 0. The second one would be step 1, which is send the NOI that we decide. The second one would be my group would designate a staff member that would help you work on the project. Third one would be review of all the technical and non-technical data and completion of the forms. The fourth one is actually preparing the package in our system to system format so we can get it authorized and submitted. And then we ask for all the final documents from the PI, and then moving on to the technical data and the actual submitting of the routing form, submitted all the technical data by the deadline, final review and actual submitted. So you can get the 0 through 8, all those 9 steps there, identifying how do we get the proposal submission initiated and actually submitted for it. We go to the next one, please. Again, these are the partial groups that you can look at. We had mentioned under OSPA, we have the 2 groups, the RSC, and then our other one, our contract negotiating team. We refer to them as CIA, Contracts and Industrial Agreements. They will assist you with sponsored agreements, whether it be financial or non-financial. You can see the list on there of what they have for non-financial, whether it's a material transfer agreement, non-disclosure agreements, data use agreements. Maybe there's a MOU that needs to be generated or cooperative program agreement. On the financial side, they'll work through the sponsor, the notice of award that you would receive and those grants, whether they're standard or not standard. Again, they'll work with you through all these items for any of these sponsored projects. They're here to negotiate on your behalf and the university's behalf to make sure all of the fine print and everything is good to go. That way you can begin your project without any issues. Go to the next slide, please. These are the contact information that we have for our groups. Liana's group that you talked about, that's Research Center for Psi and EID. The email is there. That's where you will send any questions. That's where you'll complete. That's where we'll receive the NOIs. The one right across from that is from my group, the RSC for HEBA. You can see our location. We're both located in the Biotech Sciences and Engineering building, the BSE. I'm on the 3rd floor, hers on the 4th floor. We're literally right above and below each other. So you just take the elevators, the stairs up, we'll get it. The bottom part there lists our CIA contact. The director, her name is Jessica Fernandez. They have their own email box also, vpr-ocia@utsa.edu. If you have any questions for their actual location is shared in my group, in my office suite, in the BSC in 3114. I think that's all we have to talk about. Do we have any questions?
Nope.
Or we're going to hold questions, I think, to the end. Right?
Okay, that's good. All right, thanks.
Okay, let me. Can you see my presentation?
You're good.
We see you and his kids.
So you don't see the presentation?
We do not.
Okay, let me get back over here.
And you just made me hungry, by the way.
Let me see if I can. How come this is not? Yeah. Let's see. Let me. How do I?
It should
Tried to-
give you the option when you share, Carlos, to choose which screen you're sharing.
Yeah, I'm somehow in a little panel here. Bear with me here. It's not doing the God, it won't take me to the won't take me to the main screen so I can share it. 1 second here. I apologize now.
Yes, we
Yeah.
can.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that, everyone. So thank you so much, Liana and Jesse. I'm going to talk about on the other side of the fence. We in our offices over here are we primarily work in the strategic research development on our side, we primarily work on the content of the various documents and compliance items that Liana and Jesse were mentioning. And so today I'm going to kind of go over some best practices, funding agencies, finding opportunities, some things to consider when determining fit, and limited proposal development best practices, and some various components like that. So with that, research development professionals basically help to assist with research development in terms of higher education. Professionals will help you and faculty to become more successful communicators, grant writers. And so we really try, and this is one of the things I love about my job, is trying to bring research together, to bring life to it. And so we also help with other processes as well. So a little bit about our office. My name is Carlos Aguirre. I'm institutional proposal manager here in the main office. And so I've got about 20 years of experience working in grants development, various functions. And so in our office, we have several other grant development professionals. And then attached to those are these college senior grant development managers. And so each of the colleges, your college, should have a senior grants development manager. So these are individuals that can really help you if you have a question that you want to ask, or they can refer you somewhere, or ask and assist in general with grant development questions. Now, in terms of preparing for success, the way that I look at it is there's a couple of really great areas that to try and look at that can really assist you. And that, when you're looking for trying to develop your research, you really work on your network of people that you can either meet with collaborators along the way. Really understanding the development process can be very useful because it can help you with timing. And then, learning everything you can about the funding agency and reviewing what are known as requests for proposals and funding opportunity announcements. So you really get a good sense, a real holistic sense of what to do. And oftentimes at the graduate student stage, you'll be working with your graduate mentor, your faculty mentor oftentimes. And so, so what generally happens, and this has happened many, many times in the past that I've experienced, is a grant will be released. There's 4 to 5 weeks, maybe 8 weeks that you have to put the grant together, and the team works as fast as they can to submit it. Now, there's some problems with this, and that's why an ideal situation would, or a better way to plan would be, a team has gotten together, they've been working on a problem or an issue for a while, and they may run a pilot data, and then when they begin to search for grant funding opportunities, they can match, instead of it being, passive where they just receive something and say, okay, let's go for it. They're in a better position to kind of choose which is the best approach. And then over the course of several months, they're meeting with the program officers, they're developing many iterations of the drafts, preparing supplemental documents. And so that is a much different process, less stressful process, I would say, to follow. So there's a bunch of different agencies. So the next couple of slides are just going to kind of give you some of the various agencies, funding agencies, and kind of links to those within those funding agencies. And so, for humanities, you have the big one is National Endowment for the Humanities. Also, if you want something in Texas, there's Humanities Texas, which has a couple of great grants that you can pursue. For the arts, likewise. National Endowment for the Arts. And I've put a bunch of links here to various resources that you can gain access to kind of help you with webinars and training, communication toolkits, learning about their strategic plans of the agency. All of those can be critical to you when you are trying to apply to a grant to really know if it's a good mix or not. For example, here's National Science Foundation. As you can see, they have several different links. Likewise, National Institute of Health. And so what I want to show you right now is here are some agency or different type of search engines. So I'm going to share now for you. I just want to show real quick this. And that's going to be, so for example, here, can everybody see the grants.gov webpage?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, perfect. So just when you start looking for grants, this is a really invaluable one for you to look through because you can, type in, biodiversity, for example, and anything that's related biodiversity, it'll pop up right there. So I just wanted to quickly show you that to give you one example. Let me get back over here. Okay, so there's some other ones here, once again, visiting agency websites. If you're looking for more foundations or, sources of funding, this is a good free service that you can search for through foundations. And then if you're interested in something around state agencies, if you want to apply or conduct research for state agencies, Texas Trail is a good one there. And once again, when searching, there's other areas that you can look for or through as well, just internet searching for funding opportunities, colleagues in your field to learn about where they're receiving. And then your professional organizations will oftentimes provide funding opportunities as well. And then we also have the Office of Corporate and Foundation Engagement. So in our office, we work primarily in grants. Now, there is some gray between the two, but if you're interested in foundations, corporate type funding opportunities, you can also contact them, and they're more than willing to kind of give you advice on those areas. So what I want to do now is, so once again, like National Institute of Health, National Science Foundation have some specific ones, such as the Graduate Fellows Program. And I'm going to now, in terms of when you're trying to decide whether an opportunity is a good one, there's a couple of things to keep in mind. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you all two RFP examples about this to kind of give you familiarize yourself with RFPs, requests for proposals, which are in essence the guidelines for a grant. But some of the questions that you're going to be asking yourself when you're reviewing these is, first of all, is UTSA eligible? Are you eligible as a PI? Does it say this is designed for graduate students, or maybe it's only tenure track faculty, for example? So those are some questions. What does the budget fit what you're wanting to do for conducting research? And of course, can you meet the guidelines? And oftentimes at the graduate student level, you're going to be working with your graduate advisor. Now, in addition, there's some other things to be looking for. It's like, what has been funded in your area? And I'm going to show you something in a second as well to kind of give you some pointers on how to answer some of these questions. Possibly sharing a one-pager with a program officer, because program officers can give you a lot of information. So let's say you want to contact National Science Foundation and talk to one of the program officers and one of the directors to get a better sense. And think about, are you contributing new knowledge? Does that match what the funder is looking for? So there are several different sides of the proposal and what they consist of. Executive summaries, specific aims, narratives. These are some of the common items that you're going to find. And so what I want to do real quick is I'm going to show you a couple of RFPs here. Let me get that over here. Can everybody see this page now? That should open. Okay, can everybody see this graduate research fellowship program?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So this is one that's in NSF, and a lot of graduate students will apply to this program. And it supports fellowships for outstanding graduate students that during your time here. And so So you've gotten to the NSF website, you've looked up funding searches from some of those links earlier. You found this, and let's say, you're saying, oh, is this a good fit? Or what has been funded in the past? And so you can go down here, and NIH has something called the reporter as well, where you can look at what has been funded in the past. And it can tell you which directorates are participating. And then here's this guideline, and this is generally where you're going to find what are known as the requests for proposals. And so for this one, it's the GRFP, and it gives you the application deadlines. It tells you, synopsis of the program. And what I generally will do is look at the applicant eligibility. You're going to have to meet some of these profiles, items, and then it tells you, there's no preliminary proposal that's required. And then it'll get down later on into what exactly is required to meet this grant here. And so I want to also show you a different one. This one is the scholarship in science, STEM, engineering, and mathematics. This is not one that a graduate student would be eligible PI, principal investigator, to apply, but I just wanted to show you this one as well, because it kind of gives you some examples. Here's a synopsis of the program. And as you get further down, one of the reasons I wanted to show you this is because down here, the GRFP is a little bit different, but in terms of what they're going to require you to submit along with the application, but this STEM is probably what you're going to more oftentimes see. And so let me just see where. That was not okay. So you're going to need. Oops, it took me to the wrong one. It's weird. Okay, here we go. So up here at the top, you're going to see, basically what all is required for this section here. It's been a list of what all you're going to need to answer. So here it is. You got project summary, which is basically an abstract, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a second. And then it'll tell you all the things that you need to complete in the project description. And generally speaking, when I first started in grants, I was just out of grad school, and I tried to apply to a grant, and I was still writing more in an academic kind of fashion. So I answered all of these bullets, but they were all integrated together. And so I would highly recommend, as much as possible, to answer each of the bullets and separately, different kind of subheadings. So that's what I wanted to show you on that. Now let me go back here. Okay, so as I said, you're reviewing. So that's where, when you're looking at through the RFP, some of these questions, or most of these questions, are going to be answered in there. And so what I want to do now is I want to show you an actual sample, and I have a homework assignment I'd like to propose to send to me for next week's discussion. So I'm going to show you an example of an executive summary or abstract. And there's some links here to many different proposal samples you can look at to get a better sense of what an actual grant looks like. And for your homework, for what I'm about to show you, it would be nice to write a half page or paragraph research summary where you have a hook where, to kind of catch the reader's attention, a description of the gap, what your solution or hypothesis is, and then 2 sections which are known as the intellectual merit and broader impact. And if you could send those to me 2 days before next week's meeting, then I will bring 2 up in the session so we can discuss those. So let me show you now. I want to show you an example. Where is that? Okay, here we go. So what I've got here, and I got to this site by going in the slide that I just showed you, had a bunch of different samples, NIHs, NSFs, and these are actual full proposals PDF'd together. And so what I was just talking to you about on the project summary for your homework assignment is usually for NSF, it consists of an overview and intellectual merit and broader impacts. And so you'll notice here, can y'all see this, by the way, this abstract?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. You'll notice, that they've got like some of the hooks here, the proposed work focused on studying the small proximal that occur concurrent with explosive. The main goal is to better characterize these electrical activities to gain a better understanding of the conditions that are required to produce different types and small, discharges. That could be very important for us in terms of, preparing for volcanoes. And then the intellectual merit is, how is this contributing to the science components of it? Is this going to bring a new kind of way of analyzing electrical discharges? And then the broader impacts in an executive summary talks about its wider impact on society, either, for example, increasing underrepresented populations, what's the wider effect of the research. And so with that, I'm going to now, so for next week, we'll talk about the project summaries that I received that are sent in, and then I'll finish the remainder of the presentation. With that, I think open for questions.